All right, we're live. Welcome, Zach Rutledge. Thank you for joining us today. So
Uh,
you reached out to me on what is the name of it? One of these cool sites, and you were sharing about your mental health background, that story, and how you channeled that into something that you championed. So tell us a little bit about your background.
yeah, sure. So, like you said, my name's Zach Rutledge, and so I guess the reason I'm here is I wrote a book called The Official Depression Relief Playbook, and essentially it deals with depression, of course, but all the steps it takes to kind of climb out of it. And I wrote it because a lot of the books I was reading at the time were like academic, or they were written by people who never lived it, which was kind of a
Right.
big deal to me, and or just like mental models. And I wanted to write something that was actionable things to do. So, like a quick background on me: I'm a certified personal trainer and a fitness nutrition specialist, and I'm also a brain health coach through the Functional Aging Institute, and have a black belt in karate, and I'm finishing up my yoga teacher's training, and I'm going back to grad school for a second master's degree now to become a therapist in January.
Nice.
So when people ask why should I listen to you, I think all that stuff is nice, but that's just the stuff I used. Really, why I think I can relate is because I lived it. So I feel like
Right.
that's and I came out on the other end. So really, kind of like my mission now is helping other people.
Well, yeah, that's definitely how I got into my background because, as you know, I finished my master's and I got that in counseling as well. And I figured there was now I work with predominantly with children, but also adults, all ages. So tell us about your story because you said that you wanted to develop something that was actionable.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's your story with depression? I mean, you obviously have some skin in the game.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it, right?
Mhm.
So, looking back at my childhood, it was, quote unquote, normal childhood, right? If there's such a thing. But there were no like capital T traumas going on. And I didn't have the insight at the time to notice that there were definitely some kind of chemical things going on. Um, like I took breakups harder than most people, and small roadblocks turned into major obstacles for me. But I just figured I was a moody punk rocker. That was my line, right? So I just figured,
Right.
okay, that's just how I am. So summer after high school, my best friend was killed. And that's where everything kind of started falling apart, because I tell people it was kind of like the perfect storm. So my best friend was killed. It was the summer after high school. So in 2 weeks, everyone I knew was leaving for college. Uh, at the same time, my karate school was closing down, which I had been in since I was 10 years old. So essentially, I was kind of left alone, it felt like, at least. And then there tends to be this pattern, let's say, where late teens, early 20s is where a lot of, we'll call them quirks, tend to manifest. So like things like depression, OCD, things like that. So I feel like that all kind of collaborated me all at once. So there I was, very much so spiraled out of control. I had to drop out of college. I tried for a few weeks, but I had to drop out. I just didn't have the energy. And that's kind of where the story began, where I started to build myself back up. And, you talk about actionable things. It wasn't until I realized that what I was going through wasn't just grief. And this is going to sound weird for people who haven't experienced depression, but the grief felt cleaner. The depression felt like a bottomless pit, but the grief, I could tell the difference between a depression and like a clean cry when I was crying for my friend who had passed.
Right.
I could feel it. So I realized there was this issue going on, and I decided, okay, I'm never really awake. I'm never really asleep. I'm never out of my bedroom. I've got to start focusing on something. So I said, I got to focus for half an hour. That's my goal. I was like, okay, well, TV shows are a half hour. I'm going to focus on a TV show for a half hour. And sorry, go ahead.
And before this, because you're saying that you there was this sort of, it's almost like you're describing a fogginess. Is that kind of how you felt? Like it was just,
In a
you could
way,
never focus the picture, your inability to focus, never sleeping, never resting.
that was
Is
part
that,
of it.
yeah,
That was part of it, but that wasn't all of it. Certainly wasn't all
right,
of it. I
right,
mean, it got extremely dark, about as dark as depression can get.
right,
But the fogginess was a part of it, as far as, the wasn't quite OCD, but it was definitely a lack of focus.
right,
So, like I said, tried to focus on something for a half hour. So I made the worst decision possible. I decided to start watching the news. And I was like, okay, well, smart people watch the news, informed people watch the news. And then I kind of quickly realized I don't need to know about every murder in the tri-state area.
right,
So, because it was just all this negative stuff bombarding me, made me feel worse. So I pulled back on that. Was lucky enough to fall. I played in bands, and I played in bands at the time. I was lucky enough to fall into a band where the guys were really into working out, just like building muscle. So fitness was just kind of like a byproduct for me of my martial arts. But martial arts was gone, and I was like, okay, well, this looks cool. To give you some context here, I'm 5'9" and 170 pounds right now, which is like nothing to worry about, or nothing to mention. It's whatever. And I work out 6 days a week because I'm a personal trainer. So okay, whatever. Now, cut to back then, 5'9", 124 pounds. So I was almost 50 pounds lighter.
yeah,
And I'm not a big guy. I was almost 50 pounds lighter. So I was getting sick quite a bit. And if I had gotten like very sick, there was nowhere for me to go. So it was getting dangerous. So, like I said, started getting to lifting weights with these guys, and went up to, I was 124. I went up to 135, 145. And that was the first step. I was like,
right,
whoa, I can make a positive change here. Like, not only is this like a physical thing that I'm doing, I can see the difference I'm making. It's all positive. I'm, you know, I'm, making these positive changes, and I'm feeling better from it. But also at the same time, I'm having fun doing it. It got me into this brand new thing where I'm like buying these like magazines and learning like, what kind of, how much protein should I be eating? Like whatever, what exercises should I be doing for my lats, that kind of thing. So that was, and it wasn't the cure all. And I feel like this is important to get across. There is no, just like there's no one cause of depression,
right.
there is no one cure. So a lot of time I was out there looking for a silver bullet. There's no silver bullet.
Right.
It's got to be, it's almost like a 1 + 1 = 4 type thing. You have to marry a bunch of things, and it's going to be greater than the sum of their parts. Mm-hmm. So that was my first small actionable thing that I could do. So my very long-winded answer to your question, but I felt like the story was important.
Of course. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a very good point, is that we all come from different backgrounds, different stories. So just like you say, there's not really one tell all, although we can see the signs that we're going through things, depression, anxiety. It's our experiences are our experiences. And I like what you said about capital T trauma versus lowercase t. And as a counselor myself, I mean, I identify that people experience things differently, and it's relative to their story. Mm-hmm. So somebody who their first loss is their dog when they're 14, but they've known their dog their whole lives, that's a huge loss. But to somebody else, it might be like, whatever, get over it. It's your dog. And I think therein also lies the how depression and things like that can be exacerbated, especially among, because I'll speak to my own experiences among males. I can't speak to the female question, and I'm sure that there are parallels. But for men, there's this idea in society that we have to be masculine, whatever that means, stoic, and how I illustrate that is just this sort of you keep it in, you keep it bottled in, you don't talk about it. And I learned this very young. I mean, I've talked previously in the show about my own losses and experiences. But what really hurt was I used to be very open. And then the one time I shared about the great loss, the loss of my father, was I was 14. And that's a very, very vulnerable time in a person's life, because, they're putting themselves out there, especially, I mean, I was fortunate that digital media didn't really exist the way it does today. I mean, it was MSN Messenger. That was more laughable than anything compared to what's out there now.
Sure.
But I remember I told my story to somebody and they said that never happened. They denied my truth. And that hurt me so much, I can't even express it. And then I think about that on a race level, a gender level, any level imaginable, that when somebody is telling you their story, and if you say that didn't happen or you deny their truth, you're further harming them, right? I mean, I think sometimes when people are telling us their vulnerable stories, we need to just listen, right? And then also it really does come down to listening. It's not a pissing contest. Oh yeah, well, this happened to me. It's just, we need to be present. And for me, one of the biggest things that pulled me out of my funk, out of my dark times, was, like you said, exercise, but also having a purpose and solid attachments, friendships.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can go back to what you're saying just a little earlier, people saying insensitive things, I feel like it's really important for people who are suffering with depression, of course, practice forgiveness with yourself, but you've got to practice forgiveness with the people who do say the stupid things to you. And like you said, I can't speak to females, but I can speak to, people who told me literally, butch up. That was one of the things people said to me, or it could be.
What does that mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does it mean to be a man?
I guess don't complain, right?
Which is bullshit. I mean,
yeah, don't tell people how you feel, I guess, right? Or don't ask for help. I don't know. It's an old idea, though, and I do think things are getting better. But it's important to practice that forgiveness, because they don't understand what you're going through, because they can't. Exactly. They're not in your shoes, right? That's not to say that your depression is special. And that there's no hope for you. I think we all have our own, like, different, I call them flavors of depression, because I've gone through a bunch of different flavors, right? And they are unique to us. But I do think the one thing that holds us all together is we all can get out of it. I really firmly believe that if we all take the steps, we can get out of it. But like I said, practice that forgiveness for these people, because that's just going to be another weight on your shoulders. I went around carrying a lot of grudges for a lot of years, for people who said a lot of stupid things, but they couldn't have known, and it just took the maturity, I guess, and the years later to realize that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing sayings out there, but one of them, and I'm not a religious person by any means, but there's something along the lines in the Bible that says, "Forgive them, for they not know," or something like that.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty sage advice. Like, let's just put this out there. There's some great advice in the Bible and all kinds of religious books. That's why they're still around, right?
Right,
but,
exactly.
Yes, but I do think that you're right. It's just nobody knows us. Nobody knows us, and we don't know anybody. The only way we find out is conversation. Yeah. And sometimes those conversations can be very uncomfortable. So I imagine in your journey, you have had to have many uncomfortable conversations about your depression.
Oh yeah. And it's funny, though, because I was buying into a lot of those messages, and it took me years. That was one of the later things I did, was taking that seriously. At first I was, very much shutting off, and these things did help, like I said, the fitness, but then getting into the nutrition, things like that. But it was years later that I started getting into the, the talking arena, I guess. So, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like this is important if anyone is suffering and they happen to be listening to this, because I get this a lot. So I went to therapy once and I didn't like it. Okay, I went to, and I fine. But in 19, 20-year-old me, whatever, I just figured all therapy was no good for me. Right. It wasn't until years later where I was like, maybe there was something to this. I'm going to try this again. I had a friend talk me into going to his therapist. And I was like, okay, this guy's pretty good. He ended up moving away. I went to his assistant immediately after, and she was fresh out of school and very buy the books. Didn't seem like to be a lot of connection there.
Mm.
So I said, okay, this isn't for me. But that was something that I realized, oh, she's not for me. Therapy, there may still be something in this.
Right.
So because I could feel a big difference between all of them. Like the guy was mediocre, the girl wasn't very good. Okay, so what if I can find a really great guy? So it wasn't until my fourth person that I went to. And I was like, oh, okay, this is actually really valuable. And it takes work. You just got to find the right person. So I don't want people listening to like think that, just because they tried it once, it's not for them. Find the right person. And it can be extreme. Well, I don't need to sell you on it, but it can be invaluable. Invaluable. Yeah.
I think that is, I mean, that's a brilliant point to share and to bring up. I mean, therapy is, you're never going to experience therapy from one person. I mean, I also hear about these people who, I've been seeing the same person for like, 20 years. And it's like, really? Like,
wow.
I wonder if, it's also good to try different things, right?
Get some different perspectives. Yeah,
exactly. We could become very comfortable. And I sometimes think that comfort or ease isn't like, it's good to challenge ourselves. And I think that when we challenge ourselves, that's when we feel alive and we can feel really good about ourselves. Like, probably a poor example, but I went skydiving one time and I'm deathly afraid of heights. But I was like, what am I doing? This is crazy. But it's crazy because in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like the whole time I'm like, I'm putting the chute on. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I'm underneath the plane. I'm like, this isn't happening. Plane's going up. I'm like, whatever. Then open the shutter and I'm like, that's not real. And then I edge up to it and I'm looking down and I'm like, oh, fuck, this is real. And then the guy's like, you need to tilt your head back. And I was like, I was like trying not to get out. And then he like essentially shoved me out. And because I didn't do it properly, we were like you're supposed to like fall nicely.
Right.
We were like ragdolling, it was terrifying.
Oh, Lord.
Activated it, the chute. And then as we're there, and then he's like, I'm going to lower the straps. And I'm like, it's okay. Like we can hug each other all the way down. He's like, no, it's going to be more comfortable. You get a better view. And he like loosened the straps and I dropped. And I was like, oh my God. Anyways, we eventually landed. And if anything makes you feel alive or appreciate terra firma, it's jumping out of an airplane. And I had like, I couldn't sleep the night like after that moment because I was like, what is wrong with me that I did that? Like I had PTSD. Anyways, here's a term I use comically, but I was like freaking out after. My point is that doing something out of your comfort zone while terrifying, and obviously do something safe, like for people listening, always be safe. But doing something out of your comfort zone, man, that makes you feel alive.
So wait, we got to go back to this. What made you want to do this?
Because I was definitely afraid of heights.
Oh, so this was on your own volition.
Yeah,
you chose to do this. All right.
Well, I mean, I was along for the ride. My friend's like, yeah, let's do this. And but it's moments like that. The more you can get out of your comfort zone and embrace being out of your comfort zone, I think that adds to your purpose.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Which I think is a great antidote to. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest antidepressants available.
Oh,
I'm someone who, I mean, I've had my struggles. I had an eating disorder when I was like 14, all these things. And again, it really does come down to the importance of knowing yourself. And I imagine in your story, in your process, you're working out with these guys. I think you're saying you're in a band.
Mm-hmm.
There must have been a point where maybe you struggled to understand your purpose, but then you found it.
It was part of the picture.
Okay.
Part of the picture, because we're always sharpening the sword, right? We're always finding, discovering ourselves. That sounds a little cheesy, but that's what comes to mind right now. Now that I'm like thinking about it, we're just we're always becoming more ourselves, I guess, and finding what really lights our fire. I guess that sounds even more cheesy, but
that's me. I love the
but
Doors.
there you go, right? But you get what I'm trying to say, right?
Right.
So yeah, that was definitely a big part of it. I'm still a personal trainer now, and it's not my full-time gig, but it's a big part of my life, and I
Right.
absolutely love it. So yeah, there was definitely something to it for sure. For sure.
So going back to the aha moments, right? And I think that life is a series of meta and micro moments that shape us into who we are, which is kind of an obvious statement. But anyways, um, in your journey, right? Because that's what life is, it's a journey. To get to where you are, was there one big moment or were there several kind of moments that stick out that you're like, okay, I'm figuring myself out and
Mm.
my mental health and my depression, and I want to give that back. So what were some of the big aha moments, or did you have any that brought you to where you are today?
I call them epiphanettes. They're like these very small epiphanies that would happen. Like, and a lot of time it would happen like when I was walking and I would just find myself doing something. I was like, oh, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. So one of them was I was in grad school the first time, and I was walking from the gym, and I was listening to a podcast, and I was listening to, like, it was almost like a podcast like yours, right? And it was like really positive info going on. It was the opposite of what I was doing when I first started this journey. Really
Mhm.
positive stuff, and I was like, oh wow, like this really makes a difference. Like surrounding myself with these this media that's going to help me grow, and and the way I got into that, this is going to sound funny, but grad school was hard, and I would
Yeah.
take long drives. I went to grad school in DC, and I live in New Jersey, so it was about 3 hours. And I would take long drives. I could be back and forth every couple of weeks, so I could play with my band. And since it was so hard, I was listening to a lot of these podcasts, like these, like some of them were I call them classics, like Think and Grow Rich and like Jim Rohn, if anybody knows who that is, like things like that, just like trying to get me. And I didn't know a lot of this stuff at the time, but I was discovering it, and I was like trying to get myself in that position to be the type of person who could get good grades in grad school, right? Because
Right.
I felt like I was in over my head. But it was like being in that challenge, like being in, like you said, an uncomfortable situation, coupled with the positive stuff, and I was the
Mhm.
positive media, and I was still carrying over my fitness and my nutrition stuff. That was one of the moments where I was like, wow, things are kind of coalescing here. And I mean, I could speak on a few of them, but that was one of them for sure. I just remember being on that walk and hearing it in my head, like, yeah, this is something here.
So I think that have you heard of Gabor Mate? I'm probably
No,
saying his name wrong. Oh man, dude, you would love him. So
I'm
he
writing it
talks
down.
a lot about attachment theory and how do you have kids?
I don't.
No, sorry, we talked about that. Yeah, so my daughter, man, you haven't seen nothing yet till you work with kids, and I'm just kidding. I mean, there's lessons that are available for anybody anywhere, but boy, have I learned a lot since having my daughter about what it means to be a human being and what human beings need, which is my own bias, of course, for those listening. But he talks about the roots of attachment and how, as young children, I mean, that's when we really develop our schema or the way that we see the world. So if people talk kindly to us, we see the world as kind. Now, of course, I do believe that you can't be. There has to be consequences. We have to learn, and I see that as another problem for children is that the consequences are being removed from them. Certainly the natural consequences, right? We're not
Mm,
allowing them to fail.
mm,
And I think that how we experience failure sets us up a long time into our future.
mm,
For example, I was in hockey and I was a horrible hockey player. And it was just such a negative experience for me. I was like, this is not for me. But in school, I was really good at writing. Terrible at math, but I was good at writing. I was very creative, and that was positive. So again, this develops our schema, and when we fail, and how we fail determines how we start to develop our understanding of the world. So when we experience failure and we shut down, that affects our overall confidence. But if we experience failure and someone's like, hey, you know what? You're not losing. You're not a loser. You're a learner. Things like this that trick our brain into thinking, oh man, like I got to keep going. Because if you watch a kid trying to learn how to walk, all they're doing is falling over. They're like worse than a drunk. It's hilarious. But they don't stop. They're right. Relentless, right?
Yeah,
they're relentless, especially if they're encouraged. And that's where it all comes down to, is if you have people that encourage you. So in your life growing up, did you have people that encouraged you at a young age? I mean, you mentioned about punk rock.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was
we can get into that. I love heavy metal. So
okay, yeah, we could.
But what was it that encouraged you as a young person?
I was very lucky to stumble into this karate school when I was a kid. Great karate school where I had really great teachers, and they encouraged me. For a lot of people who don't know this, so if you join a martial arts studio, there's a very high attrition rate. Very few people make it to, the end, which is really just the beginning. Interesting thing, and I love this. When we got our black belts, the few of us who did, they would say, "Congratulations, you're a beginner," and I loved that. I love that, and it was accurate. So, they were really amazing because keeping me on. So, I mean, I owe them everything. But on top of that, just my parents keeping me in music. They had a good point with that too, just on a very practical level. We were playing this crazy music, but they were like, we know where you are. You're in the basement. Like, you're safe. Like, knock yourself out. Yeah. So that was really great. And I did that till I was like, geez, I was still practicing at my parents' house. I mean, into my 30s. Like, they were just so supportive. So that was just a huge thing on me. Some of the best times of my life were just in this little, basement. And but so much growth came out of there. Right. Yeah, so really really grateful for that too. I know a lot of people don't have that.
Well, I mean, you learn a martial art, you learn an instrument. I mean, I think that those are great things for, again, building resilience, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't play guitar. Boy, I've tried. I know that's a labor of love. Now, you did mention that your karate is it an academy?
A school, we called it.
School, but it closed down.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, to you, that must have been a very significant loss. How do you deal now, today, with loss?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Dealing with loss is interesting. So my grandmother, I was lucky enough, my grandmother didn't pass away till a few years ago. She was 93. Right. And she would have lived longer, but she actually lost her child. So I think the stress of that gave her a stroke, because her doctors, anyone involved in her life, said she was going to make it to 100. She was just in such great health, but she lost a child and had a stroke. A few months later, just from, understandably so. So anyway,
like her child was an adult.
My uncle, yeah, he was an adult, and he was a smoker, and the cigarettes got to him, and
right.
And that was that. So yeah, devastating, right? So I didn't know him too well, but obviously I knew my grandmother. I guess not obviously, but I knew my grandmother very well, and that was a loss. And we do take things differently with older people, but it's still a loss. And kind of like you were saying earlier, I'm way more prone to lean on others now. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. Like sharing this story, like I would, if this were, if I were 20 years old, I'd even be embarrassed to bring up that story, right, with you or anybody. I wouldn't even want people to know that I was even having a tough time. But I was okay. I'm engaged now. She was my girlfriend at the time. I'm pointing that way, she's in the other room. But I'm way more open now to be like, right now I'm having a little bit of a tough time with this, or anybody who's gone through loss, it tends to not go in a straight line. Well, for me at least, it's kind of like this up and down thing. Even depression, if I'm being honest, even at its most crushing, there were points of levity. So, but being open about that, being like, I'm doing okay. This portion of time is being really tough on me. Just sit with me for a while, or can we do this? So that's a big part of it. Yeah, I'm very long-winded today. Sorry, Robert.
Oh, no. Yeah, don't apologize. No, I'm digging. If I look down, it's because I'm writing notes.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. You're a therapist, so I know that's what you do. But no, I'm like,
I'm drawing a stick man. No, I'm just kidding. Yes. Yeah.
It's just funny because like I haven't thought about a lot of these questions, so I'm like kind of rambling as I think about them, and I'm like, oh yeah. So like as I talk it out, which is another really great thing about therapy, right? You get to talk things out, talk out your thoughts.
Yes. Well, I mean, the other thing about therapy is that it's not just talk therapy. I mean, you always need modalities, which you speak about. You talk about strategies that you use. So, I do believe that there's a correlation between stress, a lack of stress management, and how that can affect the body in terms of things like depression, like anxiety. Like, I think that these are real. These aren't just things. They're not artificial. Depression and anxiety are very real, right?
Oh, yeah.
These are real calamities, ailments. Here I am trying to find words. They're real ailments. So my suggestion for trying to manage things like depression and anxiety is having an awareness of stress in your life and what you do when you experience it. So what do you do for stress management, or what are some tips you can give us on stress management?
So what I do is, and I briefly mentioned this in the book, and now's the point where you get to make fun of me. I literally keep a checklist of things that I want to do every day, and this is nerdy. There's things I want to do every single day because I want to get into.
You're talking to the king nerd here, so you're not going to get laughed at. I assure you. I have anyways, I won't be laughing at you. Don't worry.
All right. So I work on paper. I really like working on paper, and because I like bringing things to the physical world, and I like crossing them off. Right. So I literally photocopy this daily list, and it's on lined paper. And then I have things that I need to do for that day that I put on that are unique to that day or that week or whatever, and I'll write that down as well. And every day, I start my day. I brush my teeth, and I drink a tall glass of water. And the first thing on my list is that water. And I know I'm going to do it, right? I know I'm going to drink the water.
Right.
But it just feels so good to just cross it off. I cross off that water, and that's my first win for the day. It sets things off in a positive way. Then next I have, which things I know I'm going to do, but I have like a healthy breakfast that I make every single morning, and I have my supplements that I take that I know I need to take. Cross those off. Boom, I have my second win. So I have these little victories. Now, I don't go through the rest in order because every day is a little different. I have different things I need to do. But if things start to go a little haywire in my day, if I get a little scatterbrained, if I get a little depressed, whatever, a little anxious, I treat that list like a pilot who's having a problem flying. Now, a pilot doesn't just fly, runs into a problem, says, what's going on? Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try this. No, they have a checklist. And they say, does this look okay? Yeah. Does this look okay? Yeah. Does this look okay? No. Okay, we'll adjust that. So then what I do, same thing. If I'm going a little off, I'll be like, you know what? Let's pull it back to this list. I'm going to start knocking some of these things out, kind of start getting things back into focus, back into these like micro victories, let's say, and I can physically cross them off and be like, okay, now I'm feeling good again. Okay, let's get back to what we need to do, right? So it's very dorky, but I think it works really well for me, keeping this sheet of paper with me wherever I go.
I mean, I think it's genius. It's like the book Make Your Bed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
By the
Craven.
Yeah. Is it the Craven? It's Admirable or something.
Yeah, Stanley McCraven, I think, right?
Thank you. Yeah. And it's like, you make your bed every morning. However, this morning I didn't make my bed, but I brushed my teeth. So these are what I call certain victories. Like, you're certain to get that thing done.
Love it.
And you're right. It neurologically, it sets you up for success.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like to do is nests. Now, it's an acronym, and I go through it with everybody. And this is an idea that was borrowed to me, but have you heard of Ness? It's a checklist: nutrition, exercise, sleep, T, time for self, and then the S again is support. And if you run through that checklist, sometimes you'll notice that some things are out of whack. Like for me, sleep is something that I struggle with because I have a child. And but also, here I am, I'm making excuses. I go to bed late, right? So, but every day is a new day, a chance to start over. But again, you go through that checklist and you try to diagnose, like you're saying with your checklist, you're diagnosing what's missing and what I can do. And what I love about your checklist, it sounds like if you're running through it, you realize, oh, I didn't do that. Now I can do it. Because it sounds like it's things that you could probably do from where you are. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, lost you. We lost you.
Sorry about that. I had tech issues. Is that going to mess things up for you?
No, it's all good. We just edited it out. Progress, not perfection.
Oh, and it wasn't my kitten. I have a kitten in this room with me. So if you're hearing something, I got a kitten a few days ago. She did knock out my plug, but that wasn't the issue. So I'm not going to blame her on this. She's innocent for once. So I apologize for that.
No, worries. I think where were we again? We're talking about your checklist.
Yeah, my checklist. Yeah, and with nests and all that beautiful stuff. I think it's great.
So now another thing that I've gotten into is meditation. So taking time to breathe. Have you incorporated that into your?
Absolutely. So I was lucky enough to get to fall into meditation when I was 16. Because through my karate school, that's when we started to take it a little more seriously. Maybe I was a little younger, I don't know, but it wasn't nearly as popular back then. So I was turned on to it, and now, well, like I said, I'm going to be a yoga instructor, and that's kind of built into things. But there are different kind of ways to get to meditation, and it can, even just saying the word can be a little like, the definition may be a little squishy for some people, right? They may not know exactly what they mean, what anyone means by meditation. So what I tend to do is I get people to start with a concentration practice, because I get the most pushback with this chapter when I talk about the meditation. I get a lot of people saying, oh, well, I just can't meditate. My mind goes crazy. Well, if you're a human, your mind goes crazy. And like, it takes time. It's like anything else. I tell them it's like snowboarding. The first time you're out, you're going to be falling all over the place. It doesn't mean you're not snowboarding. You're just falling all over the place. And eventually it gets a little better and better. So I get them on the bunny slope, so to speak. So I say, let's just start with concentration. And I get them into a breath practice with some box breathing. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but for any listeners who haven't, you breathe all through your nose. And I like to close my eyes when I do it. And you breathe through your nose because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. All that air rushes over this little cluster of nerves in the back of your nasal cavity. So in and out through your nose. And you practice nice deep belly breathing. So diaphragmatic breath, right? So it's not this up and down shoulder breath. It's in and out like a belly, or like a kitten. It's in and out. And it doesn't look flattering, but that's okay. It's the way we're supposed to breathe, which is why I think we kind of pull away from that. We see people like this shallow chest breathing. They think it looks a little better. That's one of my theories anyway. So anyway, you get into that and you breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So you're like building this box, it looks like. And when I started, I would literally picture myself drawing this box, or maybe I'll picture the numbers, counting 1 to 4 for each of these. And anytime my mind wandered, I would pull it back. And that's come in handy into now my meditation. I'll do the box breathing in the morning, but I'll do like a little bit of deeper meditation a little later sometimes. And that has helped, because I get to kind of tell people now, bringing your thoughts back, that's the meditation. You're making progress there. Just the act of pulling your thoughts back you're getting something done. Like that's progress. You will get to a point where you're pulling them back less and less. But as long as you're doing that, as long as you're aware of it drifting and pulling it back, count that as a win. You're on the right track. You're absolutely on the right track. Just as a side note, I like to do this box breathing, in a calm state, because where it comes in really handy is if I have something stressful to do, like a presentation at work tends to be the first thing, right? So what I'll do is I'll do this box breathing right before the presentation, and I'll visualize myself, knocking it out of the park, making the sale, whatever I have to do. Right. Now, I can't only do it in a stressful situation, or else I'll equate a stressful situation with box breathing. So it's important that you do this, or meditation, or whatever your practice is. It's important that you do this mostly in a calm state. So that way you're bringing your calm state with you, as opposed to, let's say you do this box breathing only once in a while in a calm state. You're actually going to bring that anxiety to your calm state, because you build that kind of bridge there, the mental bridge. Just a quick side note, practical things, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about setting, of when you're doing something, when you have a practice. If you're only doing the calm breathing before a stressful situation, the neuroplasticity of our minds creates neural connections that make us think that every time we're in the situation, or every time we're doing this thing, it's for this situation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you get really angry and you punch a wall, your brain has now created that pathway in your mind that every time you get angry, that is a possible conditioning for what you're going to do, right? Yeah. Every time I'm in a stressful situation and I catastrophize the whole thing and think, oh my God, right? That becomes the pathway that our mind, of the many doors that it can choose, it can become that one. And the more that we do that, the more that we begin to almost automatically choose that door. This is like neuroscience, 101. It just becomes, the choices that we make become our habits.
Yeah.
So, but as soon as we make an alternative choice in that same situation, so as soon as I'm angry and I go, my mind is like, it's like, whoa, okay, that's a new pathway. And the more and more that I do that, that becomes my conditioning for that situation. And just like you said, the more breathing that you do, the more your body just creates, it goes less from the cerebral state of your mind, or the cerebellum, to the prefrontal cortex. But when we're really anxious and freaked out and worried, our prefrontal cortex is overworked, overfunctioning, and we can't think straight. Which is why we deflect to those poor choices, those poor behaviors. So the more that we, like you say, find that equanimity and that time for ourselves to be balanced, the more balanced we'll be. It's like an obvious mathematical equation, right?
Go ahead. Sorry. No, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's all great stuff, and it seems so simple, right? It seems like such like a, no pun intended, I guess, like a no-brainer, but it's real easy to just skip out on the basics and skip out on these really simple things, right? I'll
do it later.
Exactly, because it feels like, oh, it's so simple. That's not gonna, or like breathing, right? Yeah. We think because we're breathing, we don't have to work on our breathing. I'm breathing, I'm fine. But no, there's a difference between, just this daily hyperactive and like really deep checking in diaphragmatic breath. There's a difference there.
I love it. Well, so here's my suggestion to people. I mean, I've said this before, so for listeners, but procrastination, the Latin of that means, I think it literally or close to translates to of tomorrow. So when you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you are literally the embodiment of procrastination. And it's such an easy strategy, right? And that's what it is. I mean, there's a word for it. It's an adverse, I can't think now, but anyways, it's a coping strategy. There it is. It's an adverse coping strategy that, I'm so overwhelmed, I'll just do some of it tomorrow. best thing that you can do, let's take the example of exercising. Like, oh, I didn't exercise today. I'll do it tomorrow. Here's my suggestion for you. Do 10 push-ups. Do something.
Absolutely.
Do something active. And like you say, that's your checklist. I had a small win. I'm not saying go and run a marathon. That's not realistic.
Really important that you said that.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't have to look like exercise. I know people who just don't like exercise. So I put like a list of things in the book. I would prefer if people have a couple different or 3 different hobbies that are active. But if you don't, start with just walking, or start with hiking, or start with something like that. Have you heard of pickleball?
I have. That's like the new thing. That's
Right
in
on.
vogue.
It is the new thing. It's all the rage in the senior centers. And luckily, right across the street from me right now, they put in these 2 new pickleball courts. So I'm like all about it right now. So if you don't even like exercise, don't sweat it, guys. I got a sport for you.
Well, the beautiful thing about pickleball or any sport like that is that, like, I love lifting weights. I listen to my music or my audiobooks or whatever. That's like meditative to me. But some people, they want the community piece too.
Sure.
And I think that, like you say, pickleball is a great way, because anybody can pick it up and get into.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's silly. You can't take yourself too seriously playing pickleball, but it's a blast. It's a really good time.
We have on here, lift weights every day so sad brain doesn't work. And I think that's another important point, is that I try to get away from dogmatic or absolutes.
Oh, I'm with you there.
Yeah. I mean, so what might be a pitfall of having absolutes in terms of mental health?
I see this a lot with my nutrition clients. This all or nothing approach.
Yeah.
It's man. So I have a fairly decent diet. It's very good 85% of the time, and 15% of the time I cheat like hell, and that works really well for me. And I like you said, I'm not a big fan of the absolutes. I get people who will go clamp down. I say, please don't do this, and they'll do it anyway. They'll clamp down for a week and a half, and then they go off the deep end, and they go off the deep end. Yeah, they've got to find the balance for them. And for some people, it's going to look a little different for everybody depending on where they come from. And I just talked about this before. I literally, you're not going to believe me. Nobody believes me. I literally know a woman who would go to bed every single night with a 2-liter bottle of soda, go to bed. And by the morning, it was empty. So throughout the night, she would get thirsty, drink this soda, and in the morning, it would be empty. Every single night. Every single night. So she's talking about how she needs to clean up her diet, all this stuff. And, I said, hey, hold on. How about we just take care of this soda, right? We just kick that out for the night. Everything else, we're going to keep the same.
Was it a diet soda, or was it like a...
No.
Not that matters. I mean, that's it. Like, boom.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that. I don't like diet soda either. But no, it was just like, it was like a weird one. It was like ginger ale or root beer or something. But anyway,
right. High sugar.
It was all sugar, no caffeine. Yeah. Good for her, I guess. Yeah. Right. But so I said, let's just do that, because if she were to come at it trying to do everything on top of this, obviously everything else was way out of whack if she was doing that every night. But I say, just cut out the soda at night. She didn't like water. I get that's a very common thing I have. People don't like water because their taste buds, their palate is so oversaturated with other things. And I said, fine, throw in some water, or I'm sorry, throw some lemon. What worked for her was lemon and mint. Great, throw it in there. We have our drink. She can drink that if she gets thirsty throughout the night. She wouldn't drink nearly as much, which was good, kept her asleep, better. But it was 3 weeks later. She said, just doing that, she lost 3 pounds in 3 weeks, just doing that, which is really good.
Yeah.
But more importantly, she said it felt like her mind was lighter. So like, it just felt like she wasn't dragging it around anymore. So that was the word she used, was lighter. I was like, all right, so we're on to something here, ladies. So now if we can just don't go nuts, just keep that slow and steady pace. So Yeah, I don't know how the heck we got on this topic. That's it. That was a story I felt like was important to share.
Well, I mean, that is important. Because you're talking about the absolutes, right? And I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
it's important to, like you say, diagnose. Like, what's instead of, let's say you were a smoker and a drinker, right?
Hmm.
Rather than quit everything, they say sometimes it's easier just to quit one thing.
With
That's
you
a
there.
very poor example. That's a very poor example, but it was just the first one that came to mind.
Yeah.
So if there's a number of things that you want to address, I say focus on one. And believe it or not, the success that you experience from that one will encourage you to take on more.
Hmm.
But
Hmm. Absolutely.
you can't, like, if you're trying 10 things at once, it's like, oh man, is that sustainable? Because a big one that I see is change fatigue, is that you make all these huge choices, like I'm going to be a whatever, a choiceitarian, something like this. I'm going to have this crazy diet that's like not really sustainable.
Yeah.
For one, that's actually not good for your body.
Hmm.
And for two, I mean, is that something that you can maintain? So with the lady that you're describing and how she didn't like water, brilliant idea. Let's make it something that you can enjoy.
Hmm.
Mint and lemon, boom, right?
Yeah.
And she experienced success. So you do have to cater things to yourself. You can't just you can't make yourself suffer,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah, absolutely.
I I'm not so convinced um, that abstinence works for everybody,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that is, yeah, that's a really tricky subject. I mean, I sometimes, again, I think that there's a lot of choice fatigue when it's abstinence. You sort of have to you have to make it work for you. And like you said, 85%, you're very disciplined.
Yeah.
15%, you enjoy it, right? So if you like chocolate, hey, one day a week, you got to the gym, 4 times or 3 times or whatever, that one day, treat yourself, right? The importance of a treat. Your brain
Absolutely.
loves treats.
Absolutely. And I should, just as a nutrition guy, should note, dark chocolate is a great treat and it's not bad for you. It's actually healthy
Yes.
for you. So that's what I do to keep kind of like the sweet tooth at bay, is I always have, it's like within arm's reach right here. I always have dark chocolate nearby, but I don't feel guilty about it. And it's not like I'm eating like a ton of it either way, but yeah, dark chocolate, guys, big fan. Good for
Have you
brain
ever
health.
had have you ever had baker's chocolate, like 99% chocolate?
I put that in my shakes, but I don't eat it.
As as a like see, the reason why I talk about extremes and trying to stay balanced
Yeah.
is because, I can be quite an extreme person. So that's very rich coming from me. How one should live their life. But I one time I ate baker's chocolate and I was
Yeah.
walking on the street and I didn't have any water, and it's
Oh, good
so
Lord.
I don't even know what it is. It's like it sucks all the moisture from your mouth. I thought I was gonna
Yeah.
die. I was walking on the
Yeah.
side of the road. I was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
It was like the cinnamon challenge. I don't know if you've ever done that,
Oh,
but you say
not
to
a
your
good
friend,
idea. Not a good
yeah, I
idea.
did that. I thought I was going to die. I was like 16 at the time. They're like, if you can eat this tablespoon of cinnamon, I'll give you $20. And my
Oh.
brain says, easy. And I billowed cinnamon out of my mouth. But anyways, my point is don't be too extreme, right?
Right.
Never be too extreme.
Yeah, 99% chocolate. That's too extreme. Go with like 70 something percent and you'll be
Yeah.
okay.
Live a little, right? Live a little. So what advice do you have for time? Because part of self-care, we live such busy, crazy lives, especially with COVID. I
Hmm.
mean, people are working from home, but they're working crazy hours because they think it's okay that they can do that, right? So what advice do you have for people to make time? Because it's not about like, oh, I'll do that when I have time. You have to make time. So
Absolutely.
how do people make time in their lives for self-care?
Well, I do think it's important to, since we're going to be bringing in these healthier habits. Let's say you've never worked out before, right?
Mhm.
Working out takes time. Whether it's going for a walk or playing pickleball, whatever. Uh, it's something's going to have to give. I can speak for Americans. I can't speak for the Canadians. We watch so much TV. I would argue that for the average American, we're okay cutting out an hour of TV time, and we'll have plenty of relaxation going on. Okay, so that's the first place I go to. The average American watches. It's mind-boggling how much TV they watch, or internet time, social media time. Pick it, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah. Somebody just mentioned video games. Stop playing video games.
that's
I mean,
yeah.
a little bit's fine. I mean, I think
A
that a
little
little
bit's
bit of
fine.
video games can be quite stimulating.
Yeah, and a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead.
But what, to your point, I think that we need to avoid being in catatonic states.
Yes.
And I sometimes think that when we're watching certain shows, we're kind of like we might almost be drooling, right?
I love my mom. She is so bad at like Candy Crush and Facebook, and and she's not harming anybody. She's a very balanced person. But man, the amount of time she spends doing these, she just, like you said, it's almost catatonic. She just zones out, and she'll be scrolling on Facebook for next thing you know, 45 minutes goes by. So, well, hold on, lady, what are you doing here? I'm telling her there's better things we can be doing. Luckily, she likes to work out and stuff, but she's retired. She has the time. But either way, I mean, I think it may be safe to say after 2020, we've had enough screen time, right? I think we should be happy to get away from it a little bit these days.
I think, okay, well, actually, here's another question related to that. Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about exercise and physical health. We talk about mental health, emotional health, social health, right? Friendships and things like that, because all these play a part in our lives. I also think that digital health is a new big one. How do we practice how does social media and that affect depression and our mental health?
Well, you're only seeing the tips of the iceberg, so to speak. So a lot of people, they're only going to post the highlights. You're never going to see, oh, I got into a fight with my sister, and and then I spilled this stuff on myself, and I hit a traffic jam. Maybe you will. That's actually not going to be very beneficial to you either. But seeing all these either complaining or these super highlights, right? But you're not going to see, a lot of genuine, just, hey, I got, I made this much progress on this today. It was a small victory. I don't know. You lose your humanity in this because you're not getting a full picture. You're only seeing these little slivers, and it's very easy to be like, oh, this person's on vacation here. Even if it's every 10th person you scroll through, you can scroll through pretty quickly. Oh, this person's on this trip. This person's getting married. This person, whatever. It's very easy to build this false sense of reality. This is not reality. This is cherry-picked moments that you're seeing, and obviously not. It doesn't reflect an entire life, right? So you got to keep this in mind, and I get real concerned with younger people who maybe don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, is this an accurate representation of existence?
Yeah.
I mean, I quote Mark Twain often. I think he said this, but comparison is the theft of joy.
Oh,
and I think that social media creates a comparative mindset. Right?
Yeah. And another thing I like to do, for people who, let's say, are trying to spend a little less time doing that, I'll create an environment. I don't know if you know about real famous basketball player. He was on this basketball team. This is very common with basketball players. They'll play, they're great, they're in fantastic shape. They retire, their body falls apart, and they're gaining all kinds of weight. And
pro athletes, and
they say, what happened here? What's going on? You were amazing, and they said it was the system that was built around them. It was built for their performance, and once they were out of that system, that structure, they lost it. So what I try to do is get people to build their own system, right? So For me, I did it for myself. The path of least resistance to working out. I already have my gym clothes laid out. The path to, I'll have my laptop there, but I'll also have a stack of books. So it's like, well, like I'm reaching for one or the other, right? So it's not as much resistance, and it sounds silly, but like, well, I can stay on the couch and reach for a book or my computer, or I have to get up and walk across the room to grab a book. Oh, maybe I'll just grab the laptop, But if your book is right there, right? These are just two small examples, but you try to create, it's like going to the grocery store and buying, junk and healthy food, coming home, putting them in the same spot. No. Put the cookies away in the high cabinet so you don't see them. Put the healthy food where you actually see it. So that way, when you're walking by, my weakness, I don't know about you, my weakness is brownies. If I see brownies, I will eat them. If I walk by them, they're not going to last. But if they're in a cabinet somewhere and I'm not seeing them, it's not triggering me. So building that surrounding around you, or building that your environment, the optimized environment, I think that there's a place for that.
Well, I mean, the human mind, it's pattern seeking, right? I mean, that's what I believe so much of our existence is predicated upon, is wanting to create pattern structures of understanding. And I think that if you have routines, while not, again, being dogmatic or absolute, but having routines, again, can help us because our mind knows how to prepare itself, which actually can kind of be a blessing and a curse, like you say. I mean, because you don't want to become too comfortable with your patterns.
Sure.
So we're getting close to the end here. I'm just, because I have another one at 5. Now, I want to bring in this book that you've written, but also sort of what is your goal for people that you support? What's your mission statement?
It's hard because, I want to help people, of course, but there isn't really a there, right? I want to pull people out of those depths, but how do you put like a number on that? How do you put like there's never really a goal line, because I'm still in that place of self-discovery and sharpening the sword, so to speak. Like I'm well past what I thought I could achieve, but I'm still aiming higher, every day. I'm going higher, accomplishing more and more. And I don't know how to put it, but it's obviously gratifying to help people. But if I can get them just over that hump, and I don't care if it's 3 people, or obviously I would love to have 3,000 people or 3,000 people.
Right.
But if I can really move people and just get them out of that place, over that invisible monster, right? That's just clamping down on you. For people who don't know depression, maybe they don't understand this, but how insidious it can be. But if they could just get over this one certain hump where they feel like they have the fight in them, that would be huge for me. If I can have that book laying on their bedstand, and if this can serve as some kind of fuel for that, that's a win for me. I don't know if I can put a number on that. But so I don't know if there really is like a goal, but it's out there, and it's what's going to happen. It's what's going to happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was your favorite chapter in your book?
Dude, I loved writing the entire thing. I know people who don't like writing. I loved writing the whole thing. I loved sitting down, thinking through the whole thing. Oh, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. And it wasn't just that, though. It felt like, man, if somebody reads this, man, this is so focused. I was loving it. I was like, this is a great book. This is so focused. This is the best book on depression ever written. But I was so convinced. I was like, this is so actionable, and it's short, and people are going to be able to get through this. And I was like, man, if somebody has depression and they read this, man, this is the book I would have wanted to have. So that being said, right, there was a chapter on mindset that I really liked. So if anybody wants to check out that chapter, we didn't talk about, there were a lot of things we didn't talk about, but there's a chapter on mindset I have. If anybody wants that chapter, have them email me and I'll send them that chapter. And that's on me. Yeah. And then they can see if the book is like their cup of tea.
Yeah. Well, send me that after too, because then I can share it on the comments and stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So kind of last question, but curious about what is the difference between depression and anxiety?
They travel the same pathways in the brain. And
Right.
I've experienced both. And like I said before, depression has a lot of, I call them flavors, different flavors. And it almost felt like they each had like a different color. That's the way it felt in my mind. Um, and anxiety was almost like a, what's that? What's those swings?
Pendulum.
Okay, so like you're on those swings, not a pendulum, the swings at the amusement park where they spin around.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now picture that, right? But every chair is going in a different direction.
Ah,
Okay,
yes.
and you don't know where it's going. That was kind of how like the anxiety felt for me, just so unsettled and so chaotic and so um um like frantic, I guess would be the word,
Mm,
right? Uh
like scattered. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that has its own flavors as well. You know, for what it's worth, I just had more experience with depression, and the depression was uh sometimes it was just a feeling in my gut. Sometimes it was thoughts that just would not leave. Um, sometimes it just felt like a black everything pulling me down. Um, so really, it just the difference, I guess, is the depression could be a little bit more lonely. I would say
Right.
that's the biggest marker in my mind. Thinking back, that was the biggest thing. Was the depression felt more lonely? Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, so what's one exercise, maybe one challenge you can offer or give listeners a mission should they choose to accept it on? Is it merry-go-round? Somebody just said merry-go-round. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it wasn't the merry-go-round, but we'll use it. If all the
Okay. Yeah.
animals,
Yeah.
if all the animals in the merry-go-round were going in different directions.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
see? I can't see these comments. I'm afraid to click on anything because I don't want to lose connection again.
Oh,
Um,
it's yeah. So
yeah, I'm gonna leave the computer
you'll
alone.
you actually you'll see it after, but
Okay, cool. It's
so
called.
but
I say
back
hi
to
to all
my
these people. So
yes,
anyway, yeah,
they're
the
awesome
one thing.
people, man. They have like conversations amongst each other. It's great.
Well, I
I love it.
appreciate them,
Yeah.
and they can make fun of me as much as they want, but so because they're gonna get me here at least. Uh, I would challenge anyone to, if they have a loved one who suffers with depression, and
Mm.
I'll stand by this, ask them to come with you to a yoga class, because you can tell them things till you're blue in the face, and a lot of times it's going to go in one ear and out the other. So if you ask them to come with you to a yoga class, they're going to feel like they're doing you a little bit of a favor. That's a little bit of a boost, right? They're like, okay, I'm doing somebody a favor. I feel good about that. Just say like, hey, I'm a little nervous. Please come. Uh, you're going to get them into an environment where they're physically getting something going on, mentally they're learning new things. There's emotional support there. You're getting at the very least, an introduction to some kind of a meditation, and there's a great social aspect. You don't get a lot of jerks in yoga studios. You're going to have
Right.
you're going to have some friendly yoga teachers and people there all trying to do this thing. And here's a little insider tip, guys. Everybody sucks at yoga, so you don't have to be good at it.
Yeah.
We're all there just to have a good time, right? So this is like a very low pressure thing. This isn't karate. We're not punching each other, right? So uh, challenge someone, please. Ask them to come to a yoga class with you. That would be my first line of defense for sure.
I love it. So once again, what's your book and what's your email so that
Sure.
people can reach you?
Yeah, my book is called The Official Depression Relief Playbook. You can get it on Amazon. And my email is zacks@gmail.com. And I spell it ZACK Rutledge. So
Awesome.
yeah, shoot me a message. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
So living in New Jersey, are you a Eagles fan or a Giants fan or
I
what's your?
love that you know that. I love that you know that. How is that possible? You're way across you're like 3,000 miles away from me. Yeah.
I'll
So
tell you. I'll tell you how I know that in a second. But
okay, so I'll tell you. So it depends on where you're at. So I'm in central New Jersey, about 3 blocks from the beach. And where I am, we get both New York channels and Philly channels. So we have like
Right.
2 NBCs, 2 CBSs, right? And so that we call that Central Jersey if you get both those channels. If you're in South Jersey, you only get one. So you're the Eagles fans. And if you're in North Jersey, you only get New York. So you're the Giants fans. And now here is where everybody's arguing all the time because you got Phillies fans, Yankees fans,
see.
Sixers fans. So there's good luck getting out if you're a sports fan. there's a lot of arguments going on.
Because I'm a huge Eagles fan, so that's
Are you
why
really?
I asked. Oh yeah. I went down to Philly when they won the Super Bowl. It was
Holy smokes!
that's why my voice is messed up. Yeah. No, it was unreal, man. It was one of the best trips of my life.
Wow, how'd you get into the Eagles, being all the way out there?
Well, I love bald eagles.
Oh, that's a good reason.
Yeah. And I remember when I was watching a game. It was it was a few years ago. It was against the Detroit Lions. It was the Snow Bowl, they called it.
Yeah.
And Shady McCoy grabbed the ball, jumped over like Detroit, like vaulted over a player and got a touchdown. And I remember saying like, "Whoa, man, that was insane!" Because I didn't know anything about football.
Sure.
I'm not really a big sports guy to begin with, as I mentioned. But anyways, guy gets a touchdown. I was like, "That was insane!" And my buddy, who is from Brooklyn, I look at him. I'm like, "Man, what team is that?" He's like, it was like a Mufasa Simba moment. He was like, "Those are the Eagles, and you cannot like that team." Like, what's that shadowy place over there? That is the elephant graveyard. You do not go over there. Anyways, he is a Giants fan. And after that, I became a huge Eagles fan, and it was always a running joke between us.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's my story. But, very cool that so you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, but I got to kind of keep that quiet because I'm not a huge like sports guy either. I'm big into like snowboarding and like
yeah. Well, hey man, if you want to talk about snowboarding, you got to come here.
Whistler, I know this.
Whistler. Wow.
I will make it one day. I will make it.
I like that. Manifesting it.
No, I will. I've made it out to Vail a few times, in Colorado, but I'll make it out there. And like
Colorado apparently is unreal.
It's unreal. But yeah, I play in a band with a diehard Eagles fan and a diehard Giants fan. So I've got to stay neutral because these two guys are always at it. So
you're like Switzerland.
I have to be Switzerland.
Well, Zach, man, thank you so much. I do have to get going on to my next call here. Otherwise, we keep talking. I would love to have you back on the show.
I'd love to be back.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
It's a real honor. I love what you do, and I'm glad. I'm glad you're so busy. Go have fun on your next one.
Oh, buddy, that's the name of the game. Fun. Right? It's like funky music where fun is the key. Somebody told me that. I'm like, oh yeah,
I'm stealing that.
You steal it. You steal it. For everybody who was listening, thank you so much. Once again, I'm Robert Grant. This is I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. We have another live show in 15 minutes talking about wrestling. And let us know your comments, your thoughts. Rob's Probably Wrong at gmail.com, as well as be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Zach, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
No,
representing from New Jersey. I don't care what anybody says. I like New Jersey because I like you.
Come on out. We'll play pickleball and go swimming.
Awesome, buddy.
All right, man.
I would love